Hello, everyone, and welcome to Science Together, a podcast series by TBT Wellcome Trust India Alliance, where we delve into the science driven by the researchers and their remarkable journeys in science. Today, we're going to talk about how our bodies deal with infections and its effect on our immune system and DNA. I'm your host, Satish Chris Raghu. In this captivating episode, we are joined by Dr. Imroze Khan, an India Alliance Intermediate Fellow. Imroze, let's start by getting to know you better in the section I like to refer to as the person behind the science. Can you share the crux of your profile and research with us, please?
Hello, my name is Imroze and I'm an assistant professor of biology at Ashoka University. I'm also a DBT Wellcome Trust Intermediate Fellow since January 2021. My lab at Ashoka University is interested into understanding the evolution of host pathogen interactions, spread of disease in a population, tracking how host immunity might evolve or how pathogens can respond to such host evolution, and finally tracing the genetical basis of adaptation during evolution with pathogens. So the most exciting part, if I want to summarize, is that we can reconstruct the entire evolutionary process in the lab and prepare the stage for natural selection to operate as it happens, using a powerful combination of experimental evolution and genomics with insect models such as fruit flies and flower beetles and the natural pathogens.
Biomedical research may seem by many to be complex and out of reach. I think many of us would want to know what motivated you to pursue this field.
So, to be honest, I'm quite amazed by the advancement in our understanding of the molecular and cellular basis of host pathogen interactions and immunological responses in the last 100 years. Surely we have come a long way indeed from the first Nobel Prize that had been awarded to Elie Mechnikov, who also happened to be a developmental embryologist under the strong influence of Charles Darwin and pursued evolutionary research using comparative approaches. So following this early trails of early liaison between rise of immunology and evolutionary thoughts, I feel some of the fundamental questions, they are still largely unexplored and they need more attention, such as why are immune responses shaped the way they are, or how did we calibrate or optimize our immune strategies to our current state? These are very complex evolutionary questions, and I feel very excited to take up the challenge of tackling some of these fundamental questions.
Now, let's delve a bit into the science in the section of our conversation called Talking Science. In a nutshell, can you share with us how the body reacts to an infection?
So to summarize quickly, the reactions and the responses can be fairly complicated. And although traditionally speaking, understanding of infection responses can include a series of chemical reactions involving immune cells and molecules, but the causes and consequences can transcend into multiple levels, ranging from changes in behavior, interaction with metabolism and energetic constraints, cost of immunity, life history trade-offs, population history, and demographic features. For example, if you can think, the populations with access to more food and nutrition might still be able to withstand the effects of infection more efficiently without even directly engaging into the killing pathogens by immune resistance, which kind of helps them to minimize the side effects of immune reactions. So in a nutshell, it is complex, multifactorial, and it needs to be optimized at the level of system. It has to be optimized at the system level and perhaps beyond, which includes interaction between cells, molecules, and the organism itself, the populations, and of course its environment.
As we look a little deeper at your work in focus, can you share the important factors which shape the way our immune systems evolve over time?
This is a very fundamental question. Since pathogens are widespread, our immune system is continuously exposed or interacting with them. So this inevitably creates a strong evolutionary pressure on our immune system to select an effective immune response to control the pathogen growth and the effects of infection so that the health can be maintained. However, we must acknowledge that immune responses also need to be balanced because their overexpression or overreactivity can increase the energetic burden on the organism, and most importantly, it can also become toxic to the organism. So evolution and natural selection therefore favor variants which possess balance and yet effective immunity to produce optimal response against infection. So where benefits of immune defense are more than its costs, such as immunopathology suffered or resources spent.
Can you share the factors which your group believes to be key in controlling and managing the strategy behind this evolution of the immune system?
Well, we are not particularly focusing at curbing or managing the evolution of immune system. It's a natural process, and of course, will take its own course as and when the requirements change. But what we can do is to identify the context of life using evolutionary logic, where immune response and its effects can become costly with elevated level of collateral damages. For instance, since force of natural selection, they becomes weaker with age. This can lead to a loss of control over how immune system might function and respond optimally. So, increasing its overall overreactivity, the pathological effects, chronic inflammation, autoimmune consequences. So, evolutionarily speaking, we can vouch for at least we can vouch for the therapeutic interventions which minimize immune activation in older individuals. So this strategy is perhaps well founded.
Can you shed some light into how the immune system prevents damage to healthy cells when your body is fighting an infection?
So first of all, it is important to understand that we need immune responses which are just right and expressed at an appropriate level. We don't want immune response which are too hot or too cold. So to achieve this, several mechanisms might be at play. Primarily, immune system itself has several checkpoints which can regulate the timing or expression of immune responses against an infection. In addition, there are also antioxidant mechanisms which quench the effects of reactive intermediates of immune pathways or diverse repair machineries to fix damages done to cells, organs, and DNA. So without these regulatory and supporting mechanisms, immune responses can become uncontrolled, overreactive, pathological, and deadly to organisms.
How much can this response from the immune system control the rate of mutation in the body?
Well, so that's an interesting question. Already there are several lines of evidence which suggest the role of immunity and inflammation during several chronic inflammatory diseases such as colitis or hepatitis or pancreatitis in producing reactive oxygen species that induce damage to nuclear and mitochondrial DNA and DNA repair pathways. So this can potentially together become a major source of harmful mutations. The possibility of such mutations might further increase if organisms are living under environmental stress such as poor food or high temperature, suggesting even further implications of climatic changes. While we are testing some of these novel effects directly in various insect models, we are also looking what evolution has to offer to overcome these bad effects. We are testing whether long-term evolution with pathogens and environmental stress can evolve a more efficient system to reduce the effects of mutation transmission by improving DNA repair machinery.
The activation of our immune system's response against COVID-19 has been severe. Could you share your thoughts regarding the future challenges to the health of a person who's been infected? What are the risks of mutation or DNA damage?
While the role of inflammation during diseases like influenza in causing defects in how vital organs such as lungs function or DNA damage is induced is well known, we have just begun to understand the effects of COVID. Previous studies, including our own work, has established that inflammatory responses by harming key organs can also have long-term consequences, such as accelerating the overall aging process. Since COVID-19 infection is also accompanied by heightened inflammatory reactions and release of pro-inflammatory cytokines or induction of organ and DNA damage, long-term consequences are kind of expected. So I strongly feel for a robust epidemiological database to create or and which can correlate patients with hyperactive immunity and their future ailments. But I'm also sure that such studies are perhaps already in progress.
Now, your research suggests that future generations can be impacted from infections contracted by their parents. Can you share with us how this exactly occurs?
So, as I said earlier, infection and inflammation can increase harmful mutations and reduce the efficiency of DNA repair. In addition to imposing serious health hazards, including cancer, if these mutations are arising in germ cells, and imagine if they remain unchecked because of poor germline DNA repair machinery of parents, they can also be transmitted to subsequent generations, creating mutational load. Besides reducing the immediate health of the future generation, mutation load can also have dramatic consequences on rate of adaptation and species extinction in the long run. In our lab, we are trying to directly estimate the fitness effects of such mutation transmission and understand the evolutionary solutions to mitigate the effect.
How has the COVID 19 pandemic affected your research?
I will rather echo the feeling of the entire team working in my lab. For a population biology lab, it has been super tough to stay afloat as we are falling short of enough hands to maintain large number of insect populations that we have. This has restricted us from planning big experiments and take ambitious projects in hand. However, despite all this, we have managed to keep our morale high by devoting more time in thinking and conceptualizing future work, backed by a series of very exciting small-scale pilot experiments. So, with all this in hand, we will now be morally and intellectually stronger than ever before. And we also learn to be more compassionate and team players. So, I would say that's a massive plus.
In this final segment of our conversation, let's talk about research impact. In your assessment, how do your project's current goals impact our knowledge of the ways in which our immune systems evolve?
So, although separate studies have addressed the issues of pathogen resistance evolution, physiological cost of inflammation, DNA damage and mutations causing various diseases and illnesses, rarely these phenomena have been linked together from an ultimate evolutionary perspective. Also, what are their impacts across populations to molecules? In addition, since generation of mutations and inflammation are causally connected, tracing these connections might tell us about the evolutionary trajectory of immunity and pathogen resistance against future infection. Also, we look forward to tracing the origin and evolution of harmful mutations, which causes genetic disease, or which might cause genetic diseases and health hazards in the context of inflammatory diseases. So, given the fundamental importance of these problems to all living organisms, I feel the results of these studies are going to be broadly applicable across species.
Imroze, do you have any recipes for success that you would like to share with our listeners?
So not that I have anything in particular, but I can talk about my own understanding. So I feel finding an original question, philosophy or intellectual destination closer to your heart is the most important thing for any explorer. This might help you to stay focused, curious, and perpetually excited amidst all those inevitable odds. And also finding an intellectually stimulating, thriving community and friends might make you a happy researcher, philosopher, teacher, and student. So I think nothing is more rewarding in academic scholarship than being able to move between these different roles seamlessly.
Let's talk a little bit about India Alliance. How has your fellowship helped you and your research?
So I personally feel that all ambitious research projects require trust, resource, and recognition of ideas. And India Alliance Fellowship has provided all this to me. It has been exceptional in highlighting my position in Indian academia and also helping me to establish my own research career. Most importantly, the stability, gesture, and support that I get from India Alliance helps me to work ambitiously, fearlessly, with a lot of mental peace to explore some non-conventional ideas of blending evolution, ecology, immunity, and disease.
Before we conclude, please share with us an element of your research project that you find most rewarding.
I think being able to model and test evolutionary processes directly in action and then find molecular and genetic processes which explain the adaptive evolution. Overall, it helps us to envision the grand view of immunity and life history evolving in front of our eyes in a full circle and expanding and extending its magic from organisms to molecules.
Thank you so much for taking the time to share your insights with us. Our conversation about the ways in which our bodies fight infections and their mutations will promote a greater awareness about the severity of disease and the need for preventing the spread of them. Your work on this project will inspire many to explore exciting careers in the field of science and research. And thank you for listening, everyone. More about the research that we've covered in today's episode is shared in the description below. And so concludes this episode of Science Together by DBT Wellcome Trust, India Alliance.